Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. I'm so happy that you're here. We're talking wellness again, wellness that feels approachable and actually doable with the fabulous Jenn Trepeck. She is a health coach and the host of Salad with a Side of Fries podcast, which we talk about in this episode. I love that name for just getting a good perspective on health and wellness. We're diving into balanced living without all the weirdness, no extreme diets, no guilt, and just ways to feel our best, especially as we're getting older. We talk about that. She shares her own journey of dieting to finding peace with food, and she gives us so many practical tips in this episode. We talk about why breakfast matters, how sleep affects our hunger hormones, and how to set yourself up for success with little daily habits that stick. And I love this because we can have good intentions, but if we don't have the habits to back it up, it's really hard to succeed with whatever goals that we have when it comes to our health. So this is a very inspirational episode. She gave some amazing steps that we can start with, and I hope you love it as much as I loved this conversation. If you are enjoying our show, I would love if you would subscribe, share this episode with a friend who needs it, and leave a quick review for me. It helps the show, and I love reading them. It means the world to me. So let's get into today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show today, and welcome Jenn Trepeck to Learning to Glow. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Jess. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. You're a podcaster, and I love your podcast name. Salad with a Side of Fries. I love this.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and, tell us about your podcast and all of those good things, and then we can get started.
Sure. So I'm a health coach. I work with clients, I call it nutrition and lifestyle because it's really the combination of things. It's not just what we eat and how we eat, but how we really live our lives and looking at everything from that complete picture to, foster health, right? So I operate from the objective or, as long as we're on the same page that the goal is health. Weight management becomes a side effect of that, right? All of those kinds of pieces. So I work with clients one-on-one or in small groups, and it's fundamentally the same or similar approach as Salad with a Side of Fries, which is wellness without the weirdness. It's understanding really everything I do with my clients is based on the curriculum that I learned that completely changed my life. I feel like it's the nutrition education we're all supposed to know, but no one ever taught us. And for me, so I grew up a dancer. I sort of joke that I was like the skinny one in a family of dieters, but really all that means is that I was on a diet my whole life, no matter what, because that's the food that was around. And when I started to gain weight, I was like, okay, I know what to do, right? And it's like I did this diet and then that diet, and I lived on that roller coaster of gaining and losing over and over. And I remember at one time I felt like I breathe and gain weight. Like none of this makes any sense, And then learning this information about how food impacts the body and really what is it that our body does with food, and then changed everything because food decisions then became almost intellectual instead of emotional. Right? So I kicked my food issues because it was like I understood what was going on and I could then make choices rather than living by all of the shoulds. Right? And I built my health coaching practice on the side. So I launched Salad with a Side of Fries podcast when I left my full-time job, frankly, because I don't know what to do with free time. But it has become, one of my favorite pieces of everything I do to really pay it forward and help people help themselves and make this super accessible. And I think one of the other things that's happened over the years, because I've been in this game since 2007, so it's been a minute, and it's interesting because people are so much more aware now The other side of that is people are more confused than ever too.
Mm-hmm.
And so as much as I call salad with a side of fries wellness without the weirdness, it's also uncomplicating wellness so that we can figure out what actually is our personal best plan and not have like the shiny object syndrome of like, well, today I forgot to eat lunch, so we'll just call it an intermittent fasting day.
I love that you said that because I feel like it's very true. We are so overexposed to information. And for some people, and this was me up till not too long ago, it was like, okay, I'm going to try this program or this diet, and then that's not working. So I'm going to switch to something else really fast. And it's completely different than what I have been doing. So that's got to work. It's so easy to pick up your phone and see a reel or a TikTok and be like, oh, this is what all
That's
this
the
person
answer.
did. Yeah. I'm like, and it's so easy to be like, oh, shoot, like, let me stop what I'm doing because it's not working fast enough and there's the new thing. I don't know if you've seen it. I saw a video of somebody saying, just do 100 kettlebell swings a day and you'll get snatched and like that's all you have to do. And so, I could see a bunch of people just like dropping everything and like running to get a kettlebell because that's like the kind of climate that we're in right now. Have you heard
Yeah,
that one?
no. And I'm sitting here just thinking, please don't do that. And everybody, if you are going to do it, like choose an appropriate sized kettlebell and like, oh, your poor neck and your shoulders and like,
Yes,
you
I
know.
know. It's just such a good example of something that is just the way the world is right now. So I'd like to talk about how you grew up a little bit because you said you were in a family of dieters and then you were just maybe you didn't have to think about that because you were a dancer or whatever it was, but what switched? Like how old were you when you started to gain weight and you were very confused and like tell me about like that transition.
Yeah, it was really between high school and college, right? As so many of us do, like everything changed.
Yeah.
Not just what I ate or when I ate, but like the activity changed, the stress changed, like, everything changed. I also went on birth control around that same time. So there's a whole confluence of
Yeah.
things. And I think the first thing I did was Weight Watchers, but I didn't go to the things. I just I asked my mom to get me my own little like slider thing because that's what they used at the time, like way back when. And like I just did everything on my own. Like as a kid, there were times I would come home from school and it was like Jenny Craig food in the pantry. And I'd go into like my dad's office. I'm like, can I eat this? And he's like, I guess, but like I ate well, I ate vegetables. I wasn't a necessarily picky eater, but things changed. And it sort of snuck up on me. And like, I didn't really know why or what to do. I wasn't going to go back to dancing 6 days a week. That wasn't where I was, and, even in the dorms, I remember, oh, this is wild. So I guess our dorm was very progressive, 20 something years ago. And they had on the buffet or whatever, like when you were going through, because it wasn't really a buffet, whatever, like they serve you. And it was just supposed to be like steamed broccoli. And it had on the little label, it showed the calories and it said something like 12,000 calories. And I was like, how? How did you make the broccoli? Like, was that for the entire vat? Was that for like everything you're serving, every student who comes through here? Like, I just don't understand,
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that where you're like, I'm eating the broccoli. Isn't that the thing I'm supposed to do? So it gets frustrating. Like I remember I would intern in New York every summer in college, and then I'd go back to Michigan and I'd work out every day. I'd bring lunch to work. And also I would just sort of balloon, like I just couldn't figure it out. I tried everything. I gained weight on South Beach. Anybody who's tried South Beach, but it was like, I sort of joke, there isn't a diet out there that I haven't done, my family hasn't done, or we don't know somebody who's done it,
Yeah.
Like, did you ever hear about the pregnant pea diet?
No, tell me about that.
So there's a hormone in the urine of pregnant women. In this moment, I can't think of the name of the hormone. And so there was a diet where you like injected yourself with this hormone that was supposed to make you like lose weight. I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
haven't heard that one.
My
That's wild.
sister's friend tried that one. Didn't work.
Oh.
But, you know, I mean, the point being, right, with all of this stuff that's out there, like, of course we've ended up in this place of being 40 something and confused more than ever.
Mm-hmm. That is crazy. It's like, and it's funny because there's like no limit to what we'll try, right? We're like, if it works, I'll do it. Anything but like the things that, you know, we need to do. But tell me how you went from you were in college and then you were going through a lot of issues. And I know the birth control pill, I just had somebody on my show and we were talking about seed cycling and how the birth control pill with the founder of this company was really messed her up, made her gain weight, all of these issues that she was having. And so many women at that age are being offered that. And then just going to college and like, how do you navigate that? And how do you navigate not being home for meals anymore? And just like so many things to navigate. What did you do? How did you get on the path that you are on now today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would be remiss. Everybody needs to go read this book, In the Name of the Pill.
Okay. All right. That
I have 2 episodes on birth control now from a couple years ago. The first one is with the author of the book, In the Name of the Pill. The second one is with a holistic health coach, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who helps people get off the birth control pill. So sidebars could be an entire conversation for another day. So just everybody go read that book, especially if you have daughters.
Yes.
And then for me, even when, so worlds kind of collided, right? So I graduated from the University of Michigan. I moved to New York. I get a job. And it was only a couple months after I started working. My family was planning our annual family vacation for like December. And I had to go into the computer system and request the time off. And I was like, I am requesting permission for access to my own time. Okay. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know I'm not going to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. Right? So I had this thing in the back of my mind that I was looking for something to do outside of my full-time job, eventually to be able to either retire early or work for myself, right? Something in that vein. The other side of that was this crazy diet roller coaster that I was on. And in the process of looking for things that I could do in my spare time to earn additional income, I was introduced to this curriculum that I've based my practice on. You know, it's like how 6 degrees of separation, right? Somebody says, oh, whatever. Anyway, so even when I first learned about it, I was like, no. I don't need whatever you have, right? I've got my thing. My thing was the wild roller coaster, but that's all we knew, right? So I met people and saw people who were following this other approach. And at the time, I didn't really understand what it was or know what it was all about. But there's this one woman who is telling her story. And for the life of me, I don't know this woman's name. Like every time I tell this story, I'm like, if you're out there, like, please reach out to me. Like, is this you? Okay. So she's telling her story of removing like 150 pounds. And I am staring at her and I can't see where 10 pounds could have possibly been on this woman's body. You know, like everything she said after that, I didn't even hear because I was having a conversation with myself in my own head that was like, Jennifer, like they know something you don't know because based on everything you know, that doesn't make any sense, right? She removed the equivalent of another human and kept it off, right? And so I was like, get out of your own way. They know something. So I worked with a coach and essentially it's low glycemic impact nutrition. What we know from the research is that whether you are burning fat or storing fat is a function of blood sugar. And it's fundamentally, here's how we eat to keep your blood sugar balanced. And I mean, it changed everything. I remember, so at what year was this? It was probably, because I had already started working with, so it was probably like '08. I was working in a hedge fund. And in our office, in the kitchen, there was like a communal kitchen on the floor. Monday mornings was like a complimentary continental breakfast with like mini pastries and things and fruit. And on Fridays, it was pizza and salad for lunch. Monday morning, I could go in there and get water like once, fine. twice was hard, right? Like that little mini croissant had a voice and it was like calling my name. And by the third time I was going to get water, it felt like climbing Mount Everest naked and barefoot to get out of the kitchen and not get a mini muffin or a mini croissant or whatever it was, right? And there was one day I walked in and that started and I was like, oh, wait, I get why that's appealing to me, right? Like I haven't eaten yet. My blood sugar is low. My body is saying I need fuel fast. Well, fast fuel is high glycemic impact, right? So that's what that was. What I really need to do is go eat the breakfast that I brought and then see how I feel about the mini croissant. Lo and behold, so I go eat the breakfast that I brought. Next time I go in the kitchen, there is no voice coming from the pastries. And I was like, oh my goodness, like there's actually nothing wrong with me. Right? There's nothing wrong with you. It's like, but we're made to believe that if we can't walk in the kitchen and have the pastry not talk to us, that there's something wrong with us. And that's not the case at all.
Oh, that's great. Go on.
Yeah. No, it's just, and I think the more we try to live by the shoulds, I'm supposed to do this, I should do that, the steeper and steeper that mountain becomes. And we feel like everybody else is climbing and looking at us going like, what's wrong with you? Go. Like, why aren't you climbing? You know, and it's like completely different set of facts.
I feel like that's a huge tip, just like an epiphany for you, but like so many people that I talk to, they don't start their day with breakfast. And then they wonder why that was such a beautiful story of this is why we are struggling later or binging later or over, it's like that funny meme where it's like, I had I had black coffee for breakfast, a salad for lunch, and then 37 Oreos for dinner.
Exactly. It is
your body
directly connected. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't start your day a certain way, there's going to be repercussion from that long term and maybe more suffering than needs to be. But I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. So you said you brought a breakfast. So tell us about the breakfast. Tell us about how you kind of switched that up and then saw the result of I can say no to the sweet. I can say no to sweets, but I can remember times where I couldn't as well.
Right.
So tell us about that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember exactly what I brought that day. Sometimes I would pick up hard-boiled eggs and some fruit on my way into the office. Sometimes I would do a protein shake and some fruit. A lot of times I would do like a veggie omelet, right? But fundamentally, to start your day, protein, fiber, and some quality fat would kind of bulk it up too. But protein is clean, lean protein, right? So whatever you want that to be. If that's eggs, if that's chicken, if that's tuna fish, like most people don't feel like eating that in the morning. But like also we have this idea of what breakfast foods are supposed to be. And if you don't like those, like eat what you like. The only thing that makes it breakfast is that it breaks the fast. It is our first fuel of the day. So typically recommend 4 to 6 ounces of protein for a female body at breakfast. Breakfast we want within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up. Fiber is veggies and sometimes fruit. So also, a lot of people don't love veggies in the morning. One of my favorite things when I wasn't going into an office, like now or on the weekends or whatever, if I'm making breakfast at home, my favorite thing is a breakfast salad, right? So a few handfuls of whatever greens you got, whatever veggies you have, chop them up, throw them on there. Make the eggs, keep the yolks runny. So sometimes I'll do like 2 whole eggs and then like 2 egg whites, keeping the yolks runny. Put the eggs onto the salad. The runny yolk creates like a creamy salad dressing. And then I'll add like everything bagel seasoning. And it's delicious. If I have like some turkey sausage, sometimes I'll throw that in there, right? But it's the most satisfying, delicious breakfast. And when somebody first recommended vegetables for breakfast or like a salad for breakfast, I was like, you've got to be kidding me, right? But I was like, let's just see. I can't even tell you how amazing I felt that day. I had so much energy. I was satisfied all the way through lunch. That at that time too, I was working as a photo shoot producer, and like lunchtime, before that, like by the time lunchtime happened, I was like, my stomach was talking. This time it was like, oh, it's time to eat already, right? Like I felt so incredible that I was like, all right, sold. So I challenge you, go make a breakfast salad and just see what happens.
I remember when I went to France and like back in the day, and I had breakfast and it was eggs and a salad.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, this is such a good idea. Like, why don't we do this? Obviously there's tons of croissants and treats there as well, but I like savory breakfast. And so I was like, whoa, what a good idea. And how yummy is it? Like, of course, with the vinaigrette that they use, it was so delicious. But I love that you are kind of setting yourself up for just success and like with your breakfast. And I read something the other day. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was basically like how you start your breakfast, what you do for breakfast, it carries on until like the afternoon. Like with
It
the
sets
blood
your
sugar.
blood sugar tone. Exactly. So how we
Right.
start our day, right, with our blood sugar sets the tone for our blood sugar throughout the day. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't influence it, but it creates the trajectory of what the rest of that day is going to look like. And by the way, that also happens with our sleep, right? So our sleep and then our breakfast, and you sort of have what's kicking off that blood sugar for the day.
It's so important because there's people that I know that still will skip, and just, I think maybe they think people that I know specifically that are on a weight loss journey, if I wait as long as possible to eat, that's fewer calories. Like that's kind of how the mindset is.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, right? And so some people say, oh, well, I'm fasting, right? Fasting for female bodies is very different than fasting for male bodies. Female bodies require fuel in order to trigger safety. If we do not eat and expect our bodies to perform, that sends stress signals. When we're stressed, when cortisol is high, when adrenaline is high, right? When we are living in this state, which also happens, by the way, when we have coffee before our food, our body says, I need to survive. Anything in the body that is not critical to survival, right? We've started that like fight or flight response, which is supposed to be like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but in our modern lives, that's not how long it lasts. And so we're in this stress response. Well, when we're in a stress response, any body function that is not critical to survival of the next 20 minutes turns off, right? So what's not necessary if we don't survive the next 20 minutes? Your metabolism, your immune system, your reproductive system, growing hair and nails, right? Healing. None of those things matter if we don't survive the next 20 minutes. So if we're starting every day triggering this kind of stress response to the body, we might end up with short-term changes on the scale in the direction that we want, but long-term, we are increasing our fat mass. We are losing water, muscle, bone, and gaining it back as fat when we're in that yo-yo cycle. And there are other things that contribute to that. But so fundamentally, starting your day to keep your blood sugar balanced, to signal to the body that it is okay to burn, that it can release fat stores it's been holding onto because it's not a time of famine, because it's not a time of survival, right? It's getting all of the safety signals that allow it to do what it's supposed to do. Because here's the thing, the body is always doing exactly what it is designed to do. So if it's not doing what we want it to do, then we have to figure out, why does the body think that what it's supposed to do right now is hold on to fat? Why does the body think that what it's supposed to do right now is not procreate, right? We have to help the body do its best job and start to work on the same team as our body instead of always trying to fight it. So that comes down to understanding a little bit more about how it's working, the signals that it's sending us, and how we can help it heal and function optimally. So I know that's a really roundabout answer to the conversation.
No, that's really, it's so important. And it's like, I've only started learning about this recently with the blood sugar. What you said is so true. It's so important. Like short term, oh yeah, maybe water, muscle, like things we don't want to lose, bone loss, like, and then long-term fat gain. Like, okay, that's not what we want here. So you've talked about healthy ways to start your day and like get into a wellness routine and all those things. I'd love to ask you about that, but also if there's any other blood sugar tips maybe for us in the morning or part of this, maybe next part of the conversation with the wellness routines and health routines, especially if we're newer to it. Anything you want to add about blood sugar too, let me know.
Yeah. So, I have a download for everybody. So when you have a second, go to my website, asaladwithasideoffries.com. There's a pop-up that's there if you go down to the bottom of the homepage. The download that you're going to get is called It's Not What to Eat, It's How to Eat. And it explains how we choose foods to keep our blood sugar balanced and how do we also then enjoy the Skittles and the Twix and have it not impact us the same way it does right now. Because the bottom line is you don't need somebody else to tell you to eat Skittles or a Twix, or sorry, to eat, carrots and cucumbers over Skittles and a Twix, right? Like, duh. The question is, how do we make that an appealing choice? And how do we also enjoy those things without having them affect our body and our mood in the same way? So that's there for everybody. But fundamentally, right? Protein, fiber, quality fat. So note takers, you're going to write this down. Protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal. Oh. Protein and fiber at every meal makes your moving fat no big deal. So protein is clean, lean protein, right? Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. The only difference between a meal or a snack is how much we have at a time, and then therefore how long it's going to last us till we need to fuel again. Right? The other thing that you want a couple times a day is a quality fat. And one day, eventually, I'll figure out how to put the quality fat into the cute little sentence. But so for now, quality fat also a couple times a day. That might be a handful of nuts. That might be half of an avocado. That might be some olive oil in your salad dressing, right? Each one of those is a serving of quality fat. We're going to have 2 to 3 of those a day. Okay. Awesome, right? So protein, vegetables, quality fat are the fundamentals. The carbs, I am not a no carb kind of girl. If anybody is telling you to cut out whole food groups permanently, that's a giant red flag, right? It's not even low carb. It's about quality carb because the kind of carbohydrates that the body needs is fiber. So your vegetables and your fruit are your carbohydrates. Most of the time when somebody uses the word carbs, what they're thinking of are grains and starches. And grains and starches are not a food group. Think of them like a condiment, right? What's a condiment? Ketchup, mustard, salad dressing, right? Something that adds flavor, maybe a little bit of texture, maybe something, right? That's how we want to use our grains and starches. The idea, like I grew up on the food pyramid, right? 100,000 years ago. And then it evolved to the plate, which still kind of didn't go far enough. But that whole thing of the food pyramid with the grains at the bottom, that was about us eating what we grow in this country. That was not about biology. That was not about health. So we've learned to rely on these foods for satisfaction, right? And for these other nutrients, but they're in fact very inefficient at giving us the nutrients that our body actually needs. We don't have to cut them out entirely. We just shift the balance of what they look like on our plate, right?
Yeah. I just want to say really quick before you say the next thing. I think that's a really big thing to note or to emphasize is that we are getting carbs with our fruits and our vegetables. And I think sometimes when you're like, okay, I want to make sure I'm not eating no carb because that was all the rage. I feel like it still kind of is a little bit with certain things. And like there was a big boost of keto talk for a long time where it's like you can't even
carnivore. Like keto went to the next level with carnivore.
I know.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't imagine it could get worse, but it does at carnivore. But yeah, just thinking, okay, well, you know what? I am having carbs with my vegetables. It's like, oh yeah, of course, duh. Like it's so important. I think of vegetables, but I wasn't framing it in that way of it's a carb, it's a really great way to get your fiber and it is a great way to get your carbohydrates. So go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. So protein, fiber, quality fat is going to keep your blood sugar balanced, right? Another little hack for blood sugar balance, a 10-minute walk after you eat. So based on all the research and what we see, postprandial glucose, so essentially your blood sugar after you eat. If these days, constant glucose monitors are really popular, so some of your listeners may have them. So if you have one, right, you want that post-meal blood sugar spike to be like 30 milligrams per deciliter, right? You don't need a constant glucose monitor to figure it out, right? Like, do you get tired shortly after eating? Do you feel like you're hungry again, but you just ate, right? A 10-minute walk after you eat dramatically changes that post-meal blood sugar balance. Dramatic. So going to your question on habits, this has been coming up so much lately, where I had this on a coaching call with a one-on-one client and then a group coaching call the other night too. It's like everywhere. People go, well, I just have to do it. I just have to eat the vegetables. I just have to pack the lunch. I think few things are less helpful than telling ourselves we just have to do something. Like, what? How does that help us get there, right? So the thing that I explain to everybody is I want you to take the easy way out. How can you make doing this thing as easy as possible, relying as little as possible on our thoughts in the moment, right? Because saying, oh, I just have to bring the lunch. Well, now in the morning, when you have 250,000 other things on your mind, you're expecting yourself to remember the new thing of bringing the lunch, right? Maybe one day we remember and the next day we forget and then we think we suck, right? There's nothing wrong with you. We were just thinking about 8,500 other things and we didn't put anything in place to make this easy. So what makes it easy? I'm a big fan of Post-its. I'm a big fan of alarms, right? So maybe it's a Post-it on the door where you start to go out to your car that says, grab your lunch, right? Maybe it's a Post-it on the steering wheel that says, do you have your lunch? Maybe it's on the kitchen counter or on the refrigerator, right? One of the things we talked about the other night with clients was like, put a Post-it on the fridge that says veggies, right? A little reminder to have more veggies. Maybe you need a Post-it on the kitchen table that says, go for a walk for 10 minutes. Maybe that Post-it also needs to be on the dishwasher so that when you're cleaning up from the meal, you remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to go for a walk before I do all the dishes, right? How can you make it easy to do the thing? So I have one client where she now eats dinner with her sneakers on. So the sneakers are the reminder to get up and go for a walk for 10 minutes after we eat. There's also Post-its galore, right? But how do we make it easier? Nobody wins for making this the hardest. Make it easy. And the way to make it easy is to remove the number of things that you have to think about all the time. So I bring up alarms. So a lot of times, one of the things that came up in this group coaching call was this woman owns a bakery. And lunch, right? Breakfast and dinner are awesome. She has a really hard time remembering to eat during the day and figuring out what could actually work because she works with her hands and she's standing up and running around all day, right? So we kind of shifted what she was going to bring for lunch, but we also talked about setting an alarm to remind her to eat, okay? I'm a big fan of alarms in general. I have a lot of alarms, but the trick, this happened on another call. A client said, yeah, I have a lot of alarms that I have to remember what the alarm is for. And I was like, what? No, wait, I totally messed up in giving these instructions, right? The alarm has to have words. So you can label the alarm. When you set an alarm in your phone, you can label it. So one could be, it's time to eat breakfast. One could be, it's time to eat lunch. I have one that, okay, so years ago, it was like towards the end of my hedge fund days. I was getting up super early. I was going to work out and then I was going to this stretch therapy one-on-one, like stretch. It's not a class. It's like a one-on-one stretching thing, whatever. I was bringing her a sample of a supplement, the girl who does the stretching thing. To this day, I have an alarm that I could choose to set that says, pack gift for Emma, right? Like it has the information. So I don't have to think about what it was for. It's the reminder of what to do. So you can also do this in your calendar. So I have one every single night. This is also from years ago and I still have it. I don't delete it. 10:45 every single night goes off with a sound and it's an event in my calendar with the words and the alarm. that says, stop what you're doing and get ready for bed. Because I will stay up and do the things, right? So the alarm goes off and it interrupts what I'm doing to remind me to go to bed. And it literally says, stop what you're doing and get ready for bed. Like, how often as adults wouldn't it just be easier if somebody told us what to do? Like, we can actually set that up for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one too when you talk about how important sleep is. Like, I mean, especially and it's easy to get wrapped up, and a lot of people can get wrapped up in a show or their phones now. And then all of a sudden
I doom scroll like the best of them for sure.
I mean, then you're like on your phone and it comes up, and I do the calendar thing too. My husband and I shared a calendar for a brief moment, and he was like, I'm getting off of this thing. This is insane. Like, I can't take all of these. What is happening with your calendar? I'm like, I don't forget things because I do that. It's
right.
I don't want to show anybody because it's embarrassing. It's like so many things, and as we get older, like I looked for my phone 3 times today and it's not even 12:30 here. So like if I don't write down things on my calendar, I'm going to forget. And I think you're talking about ways we can set ourselves up for success, but also you talked about, even though we're talking about morning things or morning routines, but it starts the day before, right? Like, what are other things that you tell your clients for the day before? Because if you're just waking up and expecting to have a wonderful morning routine, but you haven't really prepped the day before, you're going to be in a pickle.
Yes. So it's really, yes, everything starts the night before, right? How we go to sleep, quality sleep, quantity of sleep, 1,000%. But what ends up happening is everybody tries to start with that bedtime and it feels impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, how many of us have said, I'm going to go to bed early. And the next thing you know, after scrolling, we're like, how is it midnight? What happened? Right? Yeah, me too. Okay, maybe yesterday. So one of the things that we do is set your alarm to wake up at the same time every morning. In an ideal scenario, over time, we work our way to waking up and going to sleep at the same time every day. If you start with the time that you wake up and wake up at the same time every day, nighttime will fall into place. You will start to get tired at the same time every night if we're waking up at the same time every morning. And so we wake up at the same time every morning. If you have that thing like we all do, it's called sleep inertia, where like you first wake up and your eyelids are so heavy and you're like, I could literally fall back asleep in 0.7 seconds, right? To break up that sleep inertia, we need light to our eyes. So sunlight, natural light, the light sensors in your eyes are the master, I'm trying to think of a better word, but it's the master setter of your circadian rhythm. So every cell in your body, not just you have a circadian rhythm, right? But every cell in your body has a circadian rhythm. We want them all to be going together. The master clock is set by the light sensors in our eyes, and we can do that most effectively first thing in the morning with first morning light, or when we first wake up, get outside, the light and some air. From there, fuel, protein, fiber, quality fat within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up. You can do your coffee if you're a coffee person or caffeine or whatever. Do it with your food, just not before. If we do it before, so in the morning, your cortisol is naturally high, right? It's part of what helps us wake up is cortisol being high. And it's not that all cortisol is evil, right? We need it. We want cortisol to follow like sort of like this proper curve, right? What ends up happening when we add coffee or caffeine in the morning to the time where our cortisol is already high without nutrients, it sort of increases, and then we have this drop, and now our cortisol pattern is off. So if you feel like you are exhausted at 3:00, you could fall asleep for the night at 6 or 7, but it's too early. And then 11, when it's really time to go to sleep, you are wide awake, right? That is classic signs of adrenal disruption, and our cortisol pattern is out of whack. So one of the simplest things we can do is just make sure that we're having quality fuel before or with the caffeine in the morning. And then obviously we don't really want it later in the day. So we've set ourselves up in the morning. What happens in the morning with that fuel, as we already talked about, really sets the tone of your blood sugar. If you're noticing that you are a nighttime eater, if you are noticing that you are insatiable at other times of the day, or you have those sugar cravings, right? So nighttime eating is directly connected to undereating in the first half of the day.
Mm.
Sugar cravings are directly connected to undereating protein. So take a look at what's happening. You don't have to tackle everything at once, but just start to observe, when do you get those cravings? What are those cravings? And what if cravings, instead of being a moral failure, were simply just the body communicating with us? And we can learn to decipher that language a little bit, right? Eventually, we'll work our way through. We want to make sure we're getting activity in the day. We want to make sure that, right, we're moving our body. We're doing some stress reduction techniques throughout the day, even when you don't feel like you're stressed. And then with nighttime, right, maybe you have an alarm that reminds you to start to get ready for bed. In an ideal world, we can get off our phones, off the devices, off all the blue light. Because remember, I talked about how your eyes are that master sensor for our circadian rhythm. Okay, blue light, 7th grade science, light spectrum. Blue light is the closest to daylight on the light spectrum. So here's what happens. We're watching TV at night. We're tired. But our eyes from the TV or the phone or the iPad or whatever are getting daylight signals. And the body goes, but I'm tired. And you're telling me I'm supposed to be awake and have energy. Okay, if I'm going to function right now, I need some fuel. And we get hungry because our body is confused. Our body is trying to figure out what's going on. So maybe you're getting hungry at night when you really just need to go to bed because it's a little bit later. The other thing that happens is that we have that blue light, those daylight signals. Then we close the phone, turn the light off, and we roll over. And then we're like, why can't I sleep? Right? Like of course we can't sleep instantly because our body was just being given all of these daylight signals. So in an ideal world, it's like an hour before bed. 30 minutes would be a dramatic improvement for a lot of us, right? So off the devices, 30 minutes. Even at night in the evening, if you start to turn off the overhead lights in your home and use lamps or red like amber lighting, things like that, where it's starting to send all of those signals to the body that it's time to sleep, that's incredible. If you really want to do the fasting piece, right? We're going to do, not even if you really want to do that. Well, if you really want to do the fasting piece, keep your eating hours to daylight, right? So sunrise to sunset is when we eat. If the sun's down, we don't eat. For many of us, that's a little less practical these days. So as we talked about, fuel within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up, and we want to finish fuel about 3 to 4 hours before bed. As a general guideline, if you're waking up 1 to 3 a.m. and you are starving, right? You might need a handful of nuts before you go to sleep. Sometimes that's a blood sugar issue that's waking us up in the morning, in the middle of the night. Sometimes that's a function of other things happening in the body. So we can start to see what's happening, right? Start with these guidelines, see how you're responding to them, and then we can tweak and play, right? The human body is 99.9% the same for all of us. But that 0.1% turns out to be a lot, right? And then you add into that our microbiome changes, right? And we have all these other lifestyle pieces that, while genetically, right, it's 99.9% the same, there's a lot more than that 0.1% that starts to change as we evolve over time. So start with the guidelines and then tweak. But we can then start to observe what's happening from a place of curiosity and understanding and learning to speak the language of the body, as I said, rather than trying to like square peg, round hole, or round peg, square, whatever the thing is, right? Like trying to force our body to do this thing and like hold on so tight to try to make the scale go down that we're really just fighting and it's not going to do what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
That was a
Oh,
really
those are
long answer.
no, that was amazing. I mean, really good tips. I love what you said about the phone or the TV at night and how that is the closest light to daytime and how it's just this false sense of energy that you have when you're on the devices because you're like, "Oh, wow, like it's pretty late, but I feel fine." And then for me, like if I do that, I will turn my phone off or the TV and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was so tired," because I'll feel tired immediately, but I'll also be like, wow, it's just it's like this fake energy that you're getting from all the light. And I used to be really good about my blue like light sunglasses or whatever. I used to wear those. I need to go get those for times where, just like anything we can do to improve our sleep or protect our sleep. And those things can be such a disruptor. And I also really liked what you said about the food before bed because you're right. Like some people might be like, oh, that's going to wake me up too because I'm dealing with my blood sugar. And that's such a good tip of maybe you have some nuts before you go to bed or almonds or whatever it is. I feel like that's a really good tip for people. And just, starting to put two and two together with your own body and your own signals and like, let's try this. This isn't working, obviously. So let me try a few things and get these habits in and see what happens. And then we can start really listening to our own needs and everything like that. So that is amazing. I feel like you gave us so many, so many helpful tips for us. But is there anything else you want to share with us before we say goodbye?
We talked
All
about a
of the
lot.
things.
I'm going to tie it together with understanding also. So, the same way that we can become insulin resistant, right? We know that to be diabetes, where your
Mm-hmm.
body doesn't properly respond to insulin. We can become resistant to the hormones that tell us when we're hungry and when we're satisfied. That happens a lot when we don't sleep. So, leptin is the hormone that tells us when we're satisfied. Ghrelin's the hormone that tells us when we're hungry. When we don't sleep, quality or quantity, if we don't have quality and quantity of sleep, we are leptin resistant. So it's not a coincidence that when you don't sleep well, you feel ravenous the next day, like nothing will satisfy you, right? It's all connected. So the beautiful thing is that all of the choices that we make for one thing support all the other things too. So please, like you said, we talked about a lot. Just pick one thing and start to play with it.
Yeah.
And then play with the next thing. And I'm using that word intentionally to play with it and see what happens because we don't want to make this another should, right? It's
Yeah.
part of why I explain all of the why things because what made all the difference for me between knowing what to do and actually doing it was understanding why. Because then I was making a choice to do something rather than living in those rules and the shoulds.
Yeah, and it makes the whole process more fun. Like we're learning how to my goal and my why is always like I want to feel good. Like I want to feel
Yeah.
better. I want to have more energy. And one thing that was fun, for literally fun for me to play around with is breakfast. Like what a difference. Like it's so funny for all these years not having the breakfast or when I was younger, my favorite breakfast was like stop by the bagel store and get bagel. It was either no breakfast or just a lot of carbs and starches and you can get away with a lot more when you're in your 20s
Yep.
than what my current age is. And I feel like for someone who's experiencing some of these issues, start with maybe it's breakfast. Maybe it's like getting that savory breakfast in and something that I find to be a lot more challenging for me, at least personally, is kind of tweaking things so that my sleep improved and maybe my sleep hygiene, making sure that I was prioritizing my sleep because that's also a game changer. Like you said, we went out for my husband's birthday and I stayed up so late, because we had an event. And I'll tell you, I was pretty hungry the next day. It was not a normal day. And I'm used to getting to bed pretty early. And I can tell you that I was definitely looking up like where to get the biggest burrito for my dinner that day, because I was like, I'm starving. So it's so good. It's so true. And I love the attitude of sort of making this process, be curious and have fun with it, play with it. And we don't need to feel bad about it. Like, things change and we're always learning new information. So,
and you don't have to figure it out alone. Like, if you're sitting here and you're confused, like, you don't have to figure it out alone. Like, reach out to me, reach out to you. Like, there's so many resources available. Find the person who resonates with you.
Tell us where we can find you for people listening who want to work on this and need some extra support.
Yeah. My website.
Where can we find you? Yeah.
Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. All social media, I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. And then Salad with a Side of Fries podcast, of course. But reach out. Like, on my website, you can book a 15-minute curiosity call. So, let's
love
chat.
it. Yes. Everybody go to the show notes and you can just go directly to the link. And thank you, Jenn. Thanks for sharing with us today. It was so good to meet you.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.